So the Modern Warfare 2 beta has officially ended, and Infinity Ward has posted an article going over a lot of the feedback that they've heard so far from the community, and they've kind of shared their thoughts on some of the feedback that was given. Some of the things they said they are changing, and some of the things they just doubled down on their previous design choice for it and just said, yeah, we're not changing that probably ever. Like, the way they word it makes it sound like it's never going to change for the rest of this game's life cycle. And I completely believe that. So there's a couple of things they do respond with, saying they are going to be changing, including the footstep audio. They are going to be lowering the footstep audio, at least for the second weekend of the beta. So that's good news, obviously, because the footstep audio should not be that high. They've also said they're going to be changing around the user interface for the menus, which is a complaint I had for the game. I thought the user interface was kind of all over the place. They said they're going to change that a little bit for weekend 2, or probably even more for the full launch, I'm sure. And they also talk about the perk system and how they're actually going to adjust it a little bit so you earn those other 2 perks a little bit faster. I was actually going to make a video talking about the perk system, but honestly, I don't think I have a big opinion on the perk system yet, and I expect that to be a feature that changes a lot more going into weekend 2, into the launch of the game. But the 2 things they do talk about, they don't say anything about time to kill, by the way. I didn't really expect them to, but of course, I of course want a slower time to kill. You guys know that, but they didn't say anything about it. It has been something a lot of people have been talking about. But the 2 things they talked about that they doubled down on, they did not say they were making any changes. They did not say they were even going to suggest any changes for this. They literally just say, yeah, we're going to be keeping this the same pretty much because this is the way we want it. And they do give an explanation for why these 2 things are the way they are, but I really don't understand these explanations. And I hope maybe some of you guys can explain it in the comments, or we can just talk about it, because I disagree with it wholeheartedly, the things they say here. The first thing they talk about here is, of course, the traditional minimap and why it's not in this game, why the game does not have a traditional minimap. And what I mean by that is the gunfire of unsuppressed weapons do not show up on the minimap like they used to in every other Call of Duty. Of course, Modern Warfare 2019 was the first one to start this, and then that continued in Vanguard. Of course, Vanguard did add a perk that did allow you to see unsuppressed fire on the minimap, but I mean, you shouldn't be forced to use a perk, so it didn't really fix the problem. And this game still has the Modern Warfare 2019 thing where there's not even a perk to do it. I think there might be like an ultimate perk, but you're only going to get that for half the game anyways, so it's not really the same thing. By default, you do not have gunshots show up on the minimap. The only time you're going to see red dots on the minimap is when you have a UAV and you see the enemy players on it. And the reason they say this is why they want it to be this way is essentially because they do not want to punish players for firing their weapon. Now, okay, it makes sense to say that, but my question is why? Why does that matter so much? Why can't we punish players for firing their weapon? Now, I wouldn't personally say you're punishing them. You're just making them have a consequence, right? Remember that word. Remember the word consequence. You're just giving them a consequence for firing the weapon. You're not really punishing them. Of course, you know, people are going to know where they are now. So now they can't stay in that same position. So now when they fire their weapon, the consequence is they probably have to move somewhere else, right? In older Call of Duties, when you shoot your gun, you kind of feel the need to move. You kind of feel the need, like, I can't stay in the spot because people know where I am now. So I have to keep moving, right? That was the whole point. That was the whole reason to have the red dots show up on the minimap. So you can't just stay in one spot, keep firing your gun, and pretty much be invisible to most people, because obviously you can hear the gunshots, but it's really not that easy to tell where a gunshot's coming from for most players, so it doesn't really work in gameplay. Of course, you know, if you have really good headset, of course you can probably pinpoint where people are, but most people don't have a great headset. Some people don't even use headsets, so actually what you're doing is putting people who don't have good headsets and good headset audio at a disadvantage, because the only way they have to hear where the enemy player is through a gunshot noise rather than actually seeing it on their minimap themselves, which I think most players can pretty easily pinpoint a red dot on a minimap. Not that difficult to see that. You don't have to be a good player to notice that either. So I don't really understand that choice, but of course, like I said, it at least gives them a consequence for doing that. So now they feel the need to move somewhere else. And of course, let's say a player does find them, so they come after them. Now they're stuck in a gunfight. And if they're a decent player, they can get themselves out of that gunfight. They shouldn't automatically just die because someone finds them. That's not punishing them. That's giving them a consequence for firing their gun. Now, of course, they have alternatives. If they want to be the sneaky deaky player who doesn't appear on the minimap, guess what? They can use something called suppressors, something that's been in every single single Call of Duty since the dawn of time. They can use a suppressor and they won't appear on the minimap. So if they really want this, they really want to just never appear on the minimap, guess what? Use a suppressor. Problem fixed. Literally, the problem is solved. And I know not everyone wants to use a suppressor, but if you really want that specific type of playstyle, then yes, you deserve to be forced to use a suppressor in order to not appear on the minimap. But otherwise, you're gonna appear on the minimap, and that's to not have it so people can camp so easily. And that's what Call of Duty should be. I know they want to support all playstyles. They want to make people be able to camp. Well, there you go. Those players should probably put on a suppressor, as simple as that. That's just like how it works, right? If they want to rush, they're probably not going to need a suppressor as much because they'll be moving around anyways. So when they appear on the minimap, chances are when a player tracks down that spot on the minimap where they were, they might not be there anymore because they're a rusher, so they're moving around constantly anyways, so it's not a big deal to them. And the next thing they talk about is Dead Silence not being a perk, and this is hilarious to me. Their reason for not wanting Dead Silence to be a perk and for it to be a field upgrade instead, they said rushers shouldn't be able to move without consequence. Remember that word I said before, consequence? So why are they okay with rushers having a consequence for moving, but they're not okay with players who are camping, most likely, to have a consequence for firing their gun? I don't get why these things they contradict each other. They completely contradict each other. And a suppressor is, like I said, the solution to a player who does want to be able to fire their gun without appearing on the minimap. They want to do that, and they don't want to be able to have it so people know where they are. They have that choice to run a suppressor. So what about the players who want to rush? What should be the thing that they're forced to run in order to allow them to rush without a consequence? Dead Silence, the damn perk. Like, that's literally the game design of Call of Duty. It's been like that for so long. That's the reason this perk exists, because it gives rushers a good way to make it so they can rush without having that consequence of their footstep audio being loud enough so people can hear them around the area. Same thing for suppressors. It gives campers a good way to camp without consequence. And like I said, I'm not like saying that camping needs to like be completely, removed from the game entirely. Like, I get it. Some players are slower players. They might not move around a lot. That's fine. But as long as the game isn't like encouraging one playstyle over the other, then I think I'm okay with it. And I don't think it should be wildly promoted. But I feel like camping, especially Modern Warfare 2019, was definitely promoted way more than rushing was. This game, it feels the same way, and it doesn't even get me started on every other thing about this game, like the time to kill. At least the map design isn't promoting camping. I'm happy about that. The map design seems to be pretty good so far. I'm not expecting too many campers in terms of because of the map design, but there's gonna be definitely slower movement because of stuff like this, and I just don't get it. When you have a perfect solution right there, you have two items that could be in the game. Suppressors are in the game right now. They kind of feel worthless because if red dots don't show up, what's the point? But that's a thing. That's a thing for people who don't want that consequence of shooting their gun. And then Dead Silence should be the thing for rushers who don't want the consequence of moving. I literally just solved it right there. I don't know why that's something that is not understandable. Like, I don't get it. I wish they gave a better explanation for these design choices, because these two examples right here of their explanations for these things that they're doubling down on, they contradict each other. So, like I said, I don't get it. What I do get, however, is that I know these two choices and a lot of other choices for this game, and of course a lot of the other choices for Modern Warfare 2018 as well, they all are basically about just trying to protect bad players. And you can say casual players too, but they're kind of interchangeable. I know not every casual player is going to be bad. I know not every bad player is going to be casual. I know many people who play this game religiously, like every day. They're really obsessed with Call of Duty and they still suck. And I know people who don't play that often and aren't actually very good. So obviously those two things aren't interchangeable completely. But I do feel like these things are definitely more for bad players as opposed to casuals. They tend to say casuals, but I don't necessarily think these things are going to hurt people just because they don't play the game a lot. It's going to hurt people who aren't good at the game, true. But I have another counter argument for that, though. Skill-based matchmaking already exists. It already exists. Why do they feel the need to do all these changes to protect these players if skill-based matchmaking exists and they're already being protected? They already have their safe space. They already are going to be in lobbies with people who are most likely their level of skill, so they're not going to go against people who have mastered the game. So they don't have to worry about these mechanics being a detriment to them. You know what I mean? It's like they're trying to remove any sort of skill that could possibly be involved in this game. But why though? If the players are going to be of equal skill anyways, why does that matter? Shouldn't that be okay then, right? Like, I don't really understand that. I don't get it. And even beyond this, let's say there wasn't a skill-based matchmaking system and it was just, you know, random, or maybe there was and it's just like a tiny skill-based matchmaking like we had back in the day, so it's like more varied skill levels in the same lobby. Even then, I don't necessarily think bad players are going to be at a massive disadvantage because of these things. I really don't, because like I said, you still have choices. You still have the ability to put on a suppressor to hide yourself from the minimap. You have that. Or I don't see how reading a minimap's that skillful anyways. Like, it's not that hard to look at a minimap and see a red dot and be like, oh, I got to go to that area now. Like, you know what I mean? It's not really that. I don't really get that. And then for the dead silence thing, hearing footstep audio, like, it's not like it's that big of a skill. I mean, it's not that hard to hear where footsteps are coming from. Again, that's more of a how good is your headset situation. That's really just, that's all it's about, really. And you might be helping bad players too. Maybe bad players don't want to have people sound whoring them. You know, let them have no footstep audio. What's the big deal? Like, that's it. Because I don't get it. I'm going to end the video there because I don't want to go on and on and on about this. But let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. Do you understand these choices? Because I personally don't. I'm still going to play the game. I might still enjoy it a little bit. I don't know. But I do think these choices are just weird. And I really did think they were going to change them. I thought there was so much feedback that I really thought they were going to change them. Now, I do get that the online community talking about this game is not the majority. They can still sell the game the way it is, and it'll probably still sell a lot, and it'll still probably be really popular. But should they still do that at the detriment of the player base, as in the people like us, the hardcore people who play this game a bunch? Should they? I just don't see why. You know, I don't think this game is going to automatically lose all its player base because they decide to add dead silence as a perk and put red dots back on the minimap like it was back in the day. Like, I don't see how that's going to ruin the game. I don't see how people are going to just automatically stop playing. Like, the reason the Call of Duties from like Ghosts all the way to Black Ops 4, like that era of COD, the ones that didn't perform as well for the most part, the reason those didn't is because of the setting, really. The setting was going into places that people really didn't like. They didn't like the futuristic stuff in that time. They might like it now, but back then, people just didn't like it. So COD was starting to fall off, and obviously Warzone and Modern Warfare kind of brought things back, and so more people were excited for more stuff. So I don't think if you add things that make the skill gap higher, I don't think people are just going to stop playing and not care about the game. I don't think that's what's going to happen. So I don't see the point of trying to protect these type of players, even though, like I said, I don't think these things will even hurt them that much. And I know they won't because skill-based matchmaking. So there's another thing on top of already the gameplay decisions probably not affecting it. Long story. I'm just going to end the video there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Like I said, I can go all day. Peace out.